Well, you know, sickness comes in all forms, but sometimes you can't always see it. This is often referred to as an invisible illness, and it causes pain and suffering inside.
Well, tonight, our own social media reporter, Amy Akers, takes us through a personal journey. She waged a 5-year battle against a disease that no one could see, and many didn't believe she had.
That's me. Looking through old pictures, I was always a happy kid. It's my favorite picture. I started swimming before I could walk.
And you waved to Mom?
I danced for years, had a best friend I went on adventures with, loved to paint. I was normal.
Brush paint. And finger paint. And finger paint.
Through high school, I was rarely sick. Never broke a bone, had my tonsils out, but that was the extent of my medical history. In high school, I was one of the best swimmers in my area. I was in musicals and theater productions. Zombie Prom. I went on to Grand Valley for undergrad, where I worked really hard to make the varsity swim team, an accomplishment a lot of people said I couldn't do.
All along, when Amy was a child in her whole life, you never tell Amy that she can't do something, because as soon as you tell her that she can't do something, she's going to do that.
Swimming for one of the best teams in Division II was a dream come true.
And she had some great performances and is one of our top distance swimmers in school history.
I made friends quickly. I was always looking to make people laugh. Life was about as good as it could get. But that all started to change halfway through my freshman year. My stomach would hurt so badly I was running to the bathroom 20 times a day. I couldn't breathe. I stopped eating.
But she put a good front up to us because she didn't want us to know. Kept a lot to herself. We'd have to pry things out of her.
Everything I worked so hard for started to fall apart. My friends didn't understand and stopped calling. The happy pictures stopped. Then they temporarily pulled me from the water.
Multiple doctors with some of the stomach issues she's had is trying to find out what was going on. In and out of hospitals, in and out of practices.
I think that's where we're at for now.
4 doctors, one who gave up on me and told me I had an eating disorder. Colonoscopy after colonoscopy, blood tests, x-rays, MRIs, barium swallows. Maybe it was cancer or irritable bowel syndrome, but none of those were right. I felt hopeless. My spirit for life was gone.
Just a lot of scary times.
So I shut the world out and denied everything that was happening.
Well, part of it was she tried to ignore the situation that was going on with her body.
This is how I was going to live and die.
When your child is not doing well and there's nothing you can do about it, very helpless. I felt very helpless.
19 meds. 2.5 years later, I finally got my answer from Dr. Ryan Stidham, my gastroenterologist at U of M.
With ulcerative colitis, there's a spectrum of severity. That is a condition where there is inflammation of the colon, which leads to ulceration throughout a certain portion of the colon.
I was filled with questions, wondering what I did to get this. Why me? What did I do wrong?
The truth of it is that the individual probably has very little to do with whether or not they acquire this condition.
It was bittersweet news. I finally knew what I was fighting, but learned that there was no cure.
The scary part was the internet, because it gives you too much information that you really don't need to know, and it puts you in a deeper scare because it tells you things you don't want to know and maybe you don't need to know.
But as with every other challenge, I didn't let it stop me. I had dreams of going to nationals for swimming my senior year. I worked so hard and was so sure that was going to be my year.
Come around the training trip, we're planning on meeting her up down in Florida for our training trip down in Miami Beach, and it just didn't work out that way.
My disease became so aggressive that I couldn't take a sip of water or move off my couch without running for a bathroom. And I was hospitalized for the first time because of it.
She kept wanting to go home and they wouldn't let her. So that's not something that you like to hear that your child has to go through and can't do anything to help her.
I never made it to Miami. In one last effort to keep going, I kept training when I was back. I was diagnosed with C. diff, an extremely strong and contagious bacteria, which ended my season and swimming career.
It was tough to see, but she did everything she could to be there at the end, and it just didn't work out that way.
That's when the number of medicines started mounting. Azathioprine, methotrexate, prednisone, Uceris, meslamine, Humira, Remicade. Eventually, I was taking 19 pills a day and 2 shots every week.
Eventually, we found an effective therapy for Amy, something called infliximab. However, she started having reactions to that medicine. So Amy was just unlucky in that particular situation.
It felt like the disease had taken everything away that mattered to me. It was controlling my every move.
This is a condition that requires serious medications, a lot of medical attention, and takes a lot of effort and time on the part of the patient to keep themselves in health.
Reporter Amy Akers joins us in the news center. And Amy,
But I kept pushing. I got my job here at 6 News. More times than not, I was unbelievably sick, coming to work noticeably pale, coasting through my life. I finally decided it was time to take command of my own life. My doctor tossed around this drastic idea, which I didn't want to do, but it became my last hope.
We finally reached a point where conventional therapies for Amy really were not sufficiently controlling her condition, and we had to make a decision.
It was my last chance to get back what was rightfully mine. It came with side effects and a complete change of lifestyles, but I was out of choices. I had to have my colon taken out.
Our own Amy Akers continues her two-part story tonight with a drastic measure that she had to take to get rid of it.
Now, we do want to warn you, some of the images in this story are graphic.
A varsity athlete, actress, honor student, I was above average in high school with dreams of going to college to swim. I was happy and healthy, ready to start the next chapter of my life. I went to Grand Valley State University, where I worked extremely hard to make a name for myself on the varsity swim team.
And she had some great performances and is one of our top distance swimmers in school history.
But just as soon as success came to me, it was all torn away. I started having stomach pain, loose, bloody stool. I stopped eating, had fevers, all so badly I couldn't swim. I couldn't eat. I virtually stopped living.
That was some tough times. We didn't know what it was that she had, and didn't understand what this disease was, and it was a learning curve for us and a scary one.
It took 4 doctors, 2.5 years, countless blood tests, MRIs, x-rays, and endoscopies to finally get me the answer I was longing for.
Amy had a pretty typical story of ulcerative colitis, but over time things started to change.
Ulcerative pancolitis. It's an autoimmune disease that affects your colon or large intestines. It becomes inflamed with ulcers, causing all of my symptoms.
And in Amy's particular case, the disease became more aggressive and ended up becoming quite severe.
After trying every medicine for UC and its cousin disease Crohn's, I still had no relief. I was still fighting this war within my body.
It'd be tough for anybody to go through this, but she's a fighter.
I was hospitalized 3 times, each time a little worse than the time before.
And every time she would go into the hospital, she would just be a little bit sicker.
When medications and special diets failed, Dr. Stidham told me I had to start considering surgery. It was an idea my parents and I were both completely against.
Being so young, it just didn't seem fair that our daughter had to go through that, and all her friends were just moving on with their lives.
Late at night, I turned to Google, looking for insight and confidence to have a pair of surgeries that became a when, not an if. Everything else hadn't worked up till that point. I wondered what was so certain this would.
And Amy was still deliberating things. She was getting sicker. And time was kind of starting to become pretty precious for Amy.
Hi guys, it's Laura. Today
Misconceptions floated around the internet, but one girl's blog on YouTube opened my eyes and gave me the courage to do what I had to do. This wasn't a death sentence. It was a chance to live again.
This wasn't something that Amy had decided on a whim. It was something that she had researched for many months.
My name is Amy Akers and I suffer from ulcerative colitis.
It was then I decided to make a blog of my own and document this journey. What was once a deep, dark, embarrassing secret became public news overnight. As I set the date for my first surgery, I signed up to be an advocate against this disease.
I think it made her easier to accept it because she could talk about it.
Taking. Signing the usual pre-op documents didn't help ease my fears. It was scary signing off that I understand the risks. that this was a major surgery and it can have complications.
How many things that could go wrong? It's really intimidating, but it's like how many things could go right? And the promise of that is just so strong and so sweet.
On June 21st, 2013, just 2 weeks before my 23rd birthday, I was wheeled into the operating room, leaving behind a video of my final thoughts for the world to listen to.
And likely as you're watching this, if it's Friday morning, I'm probably on a surgery table having my large intestines removed.
With a positive attitude while cracking jokes, I went in and it came out. In all its inflamed glory, it was a textbook surgery. I woke up with tubes and monitors in every direction, but even with new scars and holes and wounds, I still felt remarkably better. There was no more pain and bloating. Just days after post-op, I could tell a difference.
The difference can be night and day in terms of how you feel overall without your colon and with your colon.
It wasn't all easy. I struggled with helplessness, not being able to put on my own socks because I couldn't reach my feet. But it's remarkable how the world keeps turning. When we're struggling and we hurt, time keeps passing, and life became day by day.
Don't tell her that she can't walk a 5K walk 3 weeks after surgery, because if she wants to do that, she's going to do that.
And so I did, proving to myself and the world that nothing, including colitis or no colon, would stop me from living my life.
No colon, and she's still rolling.
So what are you doing?
I am changing my ostomy bag. For many people, an ostomy bag is the end of the road. Ulcerative colitis is mostly gone after the surgery, but it wasn't the end for me.
I've been a lot better. It's really kind of remarkable, and you can't really put it into words before you go in and once you wake up.
3 months later, I was scheduled for a reversal surgery, where they would tuck everything back into my body and seal it up. They took more scans to make sure I was healthy enough and my body was properly healed. And I was. And so my second surgery was scheduled for September 13th, 2013.
And then we hook it back together, usually either sewing or with staples.
I changed my ostomy bag for the last time, decorating it with a special message for my surgical team. As I prepared for my last surgery, I again left the internet with my final thoughts.
I felt so good lately. It's kind of like, why mess with something that's not broken?
And you just think, oh, please, dear God, let this all be okay. Just let this all be okay when it's all finished.
After years of pain and worry, countless medical tests and one surgery behind me, all that stood in the way of everything being over was one operation.
Any last words?
I'm ready, and it's all over.
If you could just give me your name and birthday one more time. Waiting to go back to the OR, I was more nervous than I was the first one. But I find strength in humor, so I laughed as much as I could.
I have mixed emotions of excited and nervous, but yeah.
I can't wait till this is all over and she can have her life back.
And after just an hour and a half, the final piece of the nightmare was over.
No hiccups, straightforward and good.
The recovery to the second surgery was harder than the first, which took me by surprise. It took me longer to get back on my feet, but I was inspired by the support I got from an entire community.
I think she has made her mind up to help others because of this. Her blog has hundreds of people that follow her.
She's taken this and maybe helped a couple other people accept what they have and to move forward and fight instead of just sit back and let it take over.
What I feared the most, my disease and my life-altering surgeries, became my passion. When I got back on my feet, I hosted a Take Steps Lansing event for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America. People of all ages came for a disease that hurt so many and fought back.
Wow, what an emotional story looking back at that journey. It's amazing.
It's been a really hard one to kind of put together and get ready for this, looking back at those older memories that I've kind of suppressed, but I think it's a really powerful message, and I'm glad I've been given the opportunity to tell it.